The orange tabby had been watching her for 3 days straight, and Chen finally decided that if a skinny cat could be that persistent, she could at least offer it some food. She crouched down at the mouth of the alley behind her apartment building, setting down the paper plate of leftover chicken. The cat's green eyes followed her every movement, wary but interested. Maya had moved to Boston 6 months ago for her job as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center, and the adjustment had been lonelier than she expected. Maybe that's why she found herself drawn to this scraggly creature who looked as out of place as she sometimes felt. "Come on," she murmured softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The cat inched forward, its matted fur catching the late afternoon light. It was probably orange once, but now it looked more like burnt copper mixed with dirt. As it ate, Maya noticed how its ribs showed through its sides. This cat had been struggling for a while. She came back the next day with more chicken and a bowl of water. The cat was waiting for her, sitting in the exact same spot. This time it approached faster, letting her get within a few feet before it started eating. Maya smiled. Progress. By the end of the week, the cat was rubbing against her legs, purring like a small motorboat. Maya had done her research, watching YouTube videos on how to safely trap and transport strays. She bought a carrier, some cat food, and made an appointment at a nearby veterinary clinic. "All right, buddy," she said on Saturday morning, kneeling in the alley with the carrier door open and a trail of treats leading inside. "Time to get you cleaned up and checked out. You're coming home with me." The cat looked at the carrier, then at Maya, then back at the carrier. For a moment she thought it might bolt. Instead, it walked right in and sat down, looking at her expectantly through the metal door. "Well, that was easier than I thought," Maya laughed, closing the latch. As she stood up, carrier in hand, she heard a voice behind her. "Oh, thank God. I've been trying to catch him for 2 weeks." Maya turned to find a man emerging from the alley's opposite end, near the building next door. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it. He wore jeans and a simple gray sweater, but something about the way he carried himself suggested confidence that came from more than just good posture. "You've been feeding him too?" Maya asked, surprised. "Every day," the man said, walking closer. He had striking blue eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Shaw. I live in that building." He pointed to the renovated brownstone adjacent to Maya's more modest apartment complex. "Chen," she said, shifting the carrier to her other hand. The cat meowed from inside. "I live here. I didn't know anyone else was feeding him." "I guess he's been playing us both," Ethan said, peering into the carrier. "Smart cat. 2 meals a day instead of 1. "Well, he's skinny enough that he needed both," Maya replied. "I'm taking him to the vet now. Getting him checked out, vaccinated, the works. I'm going to keep him." Something flickered across Ethan's face, an expression Maya couldn't quite read. "That's great," he said, but his voice had lost some of its warmth. "He'll be lucky to have you. Did you want to come?" The words were out of Maya's mouth before she'd fully thought them through. "I mean, you've been taking care of him too. You might want to know if he's okay." Ethan's expression brightened immediately. "Actually, yeah. If you don't mind, I've been worried about him." They walked to Maya's car together, making small talk about the neighborhood. Ethan had lived there for 3 years, he told her. He worked from home mostly, which is how he'd noticed the cat in the first place. "What do you do?" Maya asked as she drove toward the clinic. "I work in real estate development," Ethan said, which Maya thought was a vague answer, but she didn't push. "What about you?" "Physical therapist. I work at Back Bay Rehabilitation Center." "That's rewarding work," Ethan said, and he sounded like he meant it. At the clinic, they sat together in the waiting room while the veterinarian examined the cat. Maya found herself studying Ethan when he wasn't looking. There was something about him that seemed almost too polished for a casual Saturday morning. His watch was simple but looked expensive, and his shoes were the kind of casual leather that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. "Maya Chen," the vet tech called out. They both stood up and followed her back. "The veterinarian doctor." Patel was a cheerful woman in her 50s who cooed over the cat immediately. "He's a sweetheart," she said, running her hands over his body. "Undernourished, definitely. He's got some dental issues we should address and he'll need all his shots, but overall, for a stray, he's in decent shape." "I'd say he's about 2 years old," Maya said. "It's a boy, definitely a boy, not neutered either, so we should do that soon. Probably within the next week or two." Maya nodded, taking in all the information. The costs were adding up in her head, but she'd committed to this. She wasn't going to back out now. "I'd like to cover half the costs," Ethan said suddenly. Both Maya and Dr. Patel looked at him in surprise. "You don't have to do that," Maya said quickly. "I want to. I've been feeding him for weeks. I feel responsible for him too." Ethan's expression was earnest, almost pleading. "Please, let me help." Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, thank you." They scheduled the neutering appointment for the following Tuesday and left with bags of proper cat food, medication for the cat's ear mites, and instructions for a gradual introduction to indoor life. "He'll need a name," Ethan said as they loaded everything into Maya's car. Maya looked at the carrier where the cat sat patiently. "What do you think? You've known him as long as I have." "Rusty," Ethan suggested. "He's orange, sort of." "Rusty," Maya repeated, testing it out. She leaned down to look at the cat. "What do you think, Rusty?" The cat meowed, which they both took as approval. "Rusty it is," Maya said, smiling. Ethan helped her carry everything up to her third-floor apartment. It was small but comfortable, decorated with plants and photographs from her hometown in California. Maya had set up a corner of her living room with a new litter box, food bowls, and a cat bed she'd optimistically purchased earlier in the week. "Nice place," Ethan said, setting down the bags of cat food. "Thanks. It's not much, but it works for me." Maya opened the carrier door carefully. Rusty stepped out cautiously, sniffing the air. He looked around the apartment with wide eyes, then immediately darted under the couch. "That's normal, right?" Maya asked, suddenly worried. "Totally normal," Ethan assured her. "He needs time to adjust. He'll come out when he's ready." They stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Maya realized she'd just let a virtual stranger into her apartment, but somehow it didn't feel strange. Ethan had a calming presence about him. "Well," Ethan said, "I should probably let you settle in with him. But hey, if you need any help or advice, I'm right next door. Literally. Building 352. I might take you up on that," Maya said, walking him to the door. "And thank you again for helping with the vet bills. Anytime." Ethan paused at the door, looking like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he just smiled. "Good luck with Rusty." After he left, Maya sat on the floor near the couch, waiting for Rusty to emerge. It took 2 hours, but eventually his orange head poked out from under the sofa, eyes curious and cautious. "Hey there," Maya said softly. "Welcome home." Over the next few days, Rusty slowly adapted to his new life. He came out from under the couch, explored the apartment, and discovered that the windowsill offered an excellent view of the street below. Maya found herself talking to him constantly, narrating her day, her worries, her thoughts about her patients at work. She also found herself thinking about Ethan more than she expected. There had been something genuine about his concern for Rusty, something that made her want to know more about him. On Tuesday, Ethan texted her the morning of Rusty's surgery appointment. She'd given him her number when they exchanged information for splitting the vet bills. "Good luck today. Let me know how it goes." Maya smiled at her phone. She dropped Rusty off early, feeling ridiculously emotional about leaving him. At work, she threw herself into her cases, helping a stroke patient regain mobility in his left arm and working with a college athlete recovering from knee surgery. But her mind kept drifting to the cat, and if she was honest with herself, to Ethan. She picked Rusty up that evening. He was groggy and wearing a cone, looking absolutely miserable. "Poor baby," she cooed, carrying him into her apartment. Her phone buzzed. "How is he?" "Drugged and annoyed about the cone," she texted back. "Can I come see him? Bring dinner?" Maya's heart did a little flip. Sure, that would be nice. Ethan showed up 40 minutes later with Thai food and a small cat toy shaped like a mouse. "I know he can't play with it yet," Ethan said sheepishly, holding up the toy. "But for later." They ate on Maya's couch while Rusty slept in his bed, occasionally making pitiful mewing sounds. Maya found conversation with Ethan surprisingly easy. He asked about her work, seemed genuinely interested in her patient's progress. He told her about growing up in Connecticut, studying business and architecture at Princeton. "Princeton," Maya repeated. "That's impressive." Ethan shrugged. "My father insisted it was more about legacy than choice." There was something in his tone that made Maya curious, but she didn't pry. Instead, she told him about growing up in Sacramento, about her parents who ran a small Chinese restaurant, about her younger brother who was studying engineering at Berkeley. "You miss California?" Ethan asked. "Sometimes," Maya admitted. "Especially the weather, but Boston is growing on me." "It helps when you have someone to explore it with," Ethan said, then seemed to catch himself. "I mean, if you ever want recommendations for places to go, I'd like that," Maya said, meeting his eyes. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Maya hadn't felt in a long time. Then, Rusty made a particularly pathetic sound, and they both laughed, the tension breaking naturally. Ethan left around 10, but not before making Maya promise to text him if she needed anything for Rusty during his recovery. Over the next week, Ethan found various excuses to stop by. He brought a cat tree he claimed didn't fit in his apartment. He dropped off groceries when Maya mentioned she'd had a long day at work. He came over to watch Rusty finally get his cone off, celebrating like they were watching a championship game. "I feel like we're co-parenting," Maya joked one evening as they sat on her couch, watching Rusty chase the mouse toy with renewed energy. "Is that so bad?" Ethan asked, looking at her with those intense blue eyes. "No," Maya said softly. "It's not bad at all." The following Saturday, Ethan invited her to his place for dinner. "I want to cook for you," he said, "to thank you for letting me be part of Rusty's life." Maya agreed, curious to see his apartment. She left Rusty with plenty of food and water, ignoring his judgmental stare as she checked her reflection one more time before leaving. Ethan's building had a doorman, which surprised her. The lobby was all marble and modern lighting. He met her at the elevator, looking nervous in a way she found endearing. "I should mention," he said as they rode up, "my place is kind of big. I didn't choose it for the size. I just liked the light and the view." The elevator opened directly into his apartment, and Maya understood what he meant by kind of big. The penthouse was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline. The furniture was clearly expensive but chosen with care, nothing ostentatious. There was art on the walls, actual paintings that looked original. "Ethan," Maya said slowly, "what exactly do you do in real estate development?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking sheepish. "I own a company, Shaw Development. We build commercial and residential properties. Mostly in New England, but we've been expanding." Maya stared at him. "Shaw Development, the company that built that new high-rise in the Seaport District, among others," Ethan said quietly. You're not just in real estate, you're a millionaire. Technically, yes, Ethan admitted. But that's not who I am. It's just what I do. Maya sat down on his couch, processing. Why didn't you tell me? Because of that, Ethan said, gesturing to her reaction. Because people treat me differently when they know. They either want something from me, or they put me on a pedestal, or they think I'm an entitled jerk. But you just treated me like a normal guy who cared about a stray cat. And I liked that. I liked being just Ethan with you. Maya looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability in his expression. She thought about the past 2 weeks, about how he'd shown up for Rusty for her without any pretense or expectation. You are just Ethan to me, she said finally. The money doesn't change who you've been, but I wish you'd trusted me with the truth sooner. I'm sorry, Ethan said, sitting down next to her. I should have. I was just afraid of losing this, whatever this is. What is this? Maya asked, her heart racing. Ethan reached for her hand. I don't know exactly. But I know I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the day we met in that alley. I know I look for excuses to see you. I know Rusty is the luckiest cat in Boston because he brought you into my life. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I think about you all the time, too. I was starting to wonder if I was imagining the connection. You're not imagining it, Ethan said softly. He cupped her face with his free hand. Can I kiss you, please? Maya whispered. His lips met hers gently at first, tentative and sweet. Then Maya leaned in and the kiss deepened, weeks of tension and longing pouring into it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. I should finish making dinner before I burn down my kitchen, he said, making her laugh. They cooked together, Maya chopping vegetables while Ethan handled the salmon. He moved around the kitchen with easy confidence, pouring wine and telling her stories about disastrous construction projects. Maya found herself relaxing into the evening, the revelation about his wealth becoming less important than the way he looked at her, the way he listened when she talked, the way he made her laugh. After dinner, they stood by the windows, looking out at the city lights. Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind and Maya leaned back against his chest. I want to do this right, Ethan said into her hair. I want to take you on real dates. I want to introduce you to my friends. I want to see where this goes without rushing. I want that too, Maya said, turning in his arms to face him. They kissed again, slower this time, savoring it. Maya felt like she was standing on the edge of something enormous and wonderful and slightly terrifying. She went home around midnight, her lips swollen and her heart full. Rusty greeted her with an indignant meow, as if he knew she'd been fraternizing with the enemy. Don't look at me like that, Maya told him, scooping him up. If it wasn't for you, I never would have met him. Rusty purred, apparently forgiving her. The next few weeks fell into a beautiful rhythm. Ethan took Maya to dinner at restaurants she'd only read about, but he also seemed just as happy getting takeout and eating on her couch with Rusty between them. They went to a museum on a rainy Sunday, holding hands as they wandered through galleries. They walked along the Charles River at sunset, talking about their dreams and fears. Maya met Ethan's best friend, Marcus, who ran a nonprofit that built affordable housing. Thank God, Marcus said when Ethan introduced them. I was starting to think he'd married his work. You're exactly what he needs. Ethan met Maya's coworkers when he picked her up from work one day, charming them all without trying. Her friend Rachel pulled her aside and whispered, "Girl, he looks at you like you hung the moon." One evening, about a month into their relationship, Maya brought up something that had been bothering her. Do you ever worry about the money difference? She asked. They were at her place, cooking dinner together. It had become their routine on weeknights when Ethan didn't have late meetings. Ethan looked up from the vegetables he was dicing. Worry how? I don't know. Like you have this penthouse and your company and I have my little apartment and my job. Does it ever feel unbalanced? Ethan set down the knife and came around the counter to her. Maya, listen to me. What you do matters more than anything I could build. You help people heal, regain their lives, their mobility, their independence. That's worth more than all the buildings in Boston. And your apartment. He looked around the small space fondly. This feels more like home than my place ever has. Because you're here. Maya felt tears threaten. I'm being stupid, aren't I? You're not stupid. You're thinking about real things that matter in a relationship, but money is just money. It doesn't define worth or compatibility or love. He paused. And I know we haven't said that word yet, but Maya, I'm falling in love with you. Have been since you let me come to the vet with you. I love you too, Maya said, the words coming easily because they were true. I think I have been for a while. I was just scared to admit it. They kissed, tender and deep, sealing the confession. Rusty jumped onto the counter, demanding attention, and they broke apart laughing. Even the cat is judging our timing, Ethan said. Our cat, Maya corrected, scratching Rusty's ears. Our cat, Ethan agreed, and the word "our" made Maya's heart soar. Not everything was perfect. Ethan worked long hours sometimes, missing dates because of construction delays or investor meetings. Maya had her own demanding schedule, working with patients who needed her full attention. They had their first real fight when Ethan surprised her with an expensive necklace, and Maya felt overwhelmed by the gesture. I can't accept this, she said, holding the jewelry box. It's too much. Why is it too much? I wanted to get you something nice. Because it feels like you're trying to buy me or something. I don't need expensive gifts, Ethan. I just need you. I'm not trying to buy you, Ethan said, frustration creeping into his voice. I'm trying to show you how much you mean to me. Would you be angry if I got you flowers? That's different and you know it. How is it different? Because flowers cost $20 and a necklace costs more. That's exactly the money thing you said wouldn't matter. Maya sat down, feeling confused and emotional. I don't know how to explain it. It just makes me uncomfortable. Ethan took a breath, visibly calming himself. He sat next to her. Okay, help me understand, because I truly don't want to make you uncomfortable. They talked for an hour, working through feelings about money and gestures and love languages. They agreed on boundaries that felt good to both of them. Small, thoughtful gifts were fine. Big, expensive ones needed discussion first. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was communication, and that mattered more. I'm sorry, Ethan said finally. I grew up in a house where money substituted for affection a lot. I don't want to do that to you, to us. I'm sorry too, Maya said. I think my pride gets in the way sometimes. I don't want to feel like I'm being taken care of. I want to be a partner. You are my partner, Ethan said firmly. In every way that matters. They returned the necklace together and donated the money to Maya's rehabilitation center, funding equipment for patients who couldn't afford it. It felt right to both of them. 3 months into their relationship, Ethan's mother visited from Connecticut. Millionaire Shaw was elegant and intimidating, arriving at Ethan's penthouse with an expensive handbag and a critical eye. Ethan had warned Maya that his mother could be difficult, but Maya was determined to make a good impression. So you're the physical therapist, Millionaire said, looking Maya up and down at dinner. Yes, Mrs. Shaw, I work at Back Bay Rehabilitation Center. How nice, Millionaire said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. And how did you meet my son? Through a stray cat actually, Maya said, smiling at the memory. Millionaire's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. A cat. We were both feeding the same stray in the alley behind our buildings, Ethan explained, reaching for Maya's hand under the table. Maya rescued him. We adopted him together. You have a cat now, Alina looked at her son like he'd announced he was joining the circus. We do. His name is Rusty. He's great, Mom. Alina looked between them, her expression softening slightly. Well, I suppose if a cat brought you together, it can't be all bad. Though I always thought you'd end up with someone from your circle, Ethan. My circle was full of people who wanted my money or my name, Ethan said evenly. Maya wants me, just me. That's worth more than any social connection. Maya squeezed his hand, grateful for his defense but also feeling the sting of Alina's obvious disapproval. The dinner was tense, but they got through it. Afterward, alone in Ethan's apartment, Maya let out a long breath. That was brutal, she said. I'm sorry, she can be a lot. She doesn't think I'm good enough for you. She doesn't think anyone is good enough for me, Ethan said, pulling Maya into his arms. It's not about you. It's about her own issues and expectations. My opinion is the only one that matters, and I think you're perfect. I'm far from perfect, Maya said. Perfect for me then, Ethan amended, kissing her forehead. A week later, Maya received a surprise visit at her workplace from Alina Shaw. Mrs. Shaw, Maya said, stunned to see the woman in the rehabilitation center's lobby. Is everything okay? I wanted to see where you work, Alina said simply. May I? Confused but curious, Maya gave her a tour, showing her the therapy rooms, the equipment, introducing her to some of the staff. One of her patients, an older woman named Dorothy who was recovering from a hip replacement, was in the middle of a session. This is Mrs. Shaw, Maya introduced. Mrs. Shaw, this is Dorothy. She's one of my favorite patients. Only because I actually do the exercises you give me, Dorothy joked. Maya laughed. That does help. Alina watched Maya work with Dorothy, observed the gentle way she encouraged and challenged her patient, the genuine care in her voice. After the session, as Maya walked Alina out, the older woman spoke. I judged you unfairly, Alina said. I thought you might be after my son's money. But watching you work, seeing how you are with people, I understand now why Ethan loves you. You have a good heart, Maya. That's rare. Maya felt unexpected tears rise. Thank you, Mrs. Shaw. That means a lot. Call me Alina, she said, patting Maya's hand. And take care of my son. He's been different since meeting you. Happier. After Alina returned to Connecticut, things felt more settled. Ethan was relieved his mother had come around, and Maya felt like she'd passed some important test, though she'd never tell Ethan she saw it that way. Summer arrived, hot and humid. On their 6-month anniversary, Ethan planned a surprise. He picked Maya up early on a Saturday morning, refusing to tell her where they were going. Just trust me, he said, loading a bag into his car. They drove north, out of the city, into the countryside. After an hour, they turned down a winding road that led to a lake. Ethan parked near a beautiful house, modern but warm, all windows and natural wood. Where are we? Maya asked. My lake house, Ethan said. Well, it's new. I just bought it last month. I wanted to show you. The house was stunning, positioned perfectly to catch the morning light on the water. Inside, it was furnished simply but beautifully. There was a huge kitchen, a living room with a fireplace, and upstairs, bedrooms with views of the lake. Ethan, this is incredible, Maya breathed. I was thinking, Ethan said, looking nervous in a way Maya rarely saw, that this could be our place. Not just mine. Somewhere we could come on weekends, escape the city. I know it's a big step and you might not want that, but I wanted you to see it, to know that I'm thinking about a future with you in it. Maya turned to him, overwhelmed with emotion. You bought a house with me in mind. I buy everything with you in mind now, Ethan said simply. I can't imagine my life without you anymore, Maya. I don't want to. She kissed him then, deep and passionate, trying to convey everything she felt. They spent the day exploring the house, swimming in the lake, making love in the master bedroom with the windows open and the breeze flowing through. It felt like a glimpse of a future Maya wanted desperately. That night, lying on the dock under the stars, Maya's head on Ethan's chest, she spoke softly. "I want this. The future with you, all of it." "Yeah." Ethan's voice was thick with emotion. "Yeah, I love you so much it scares me sometimes. But I don't want to be scared. I want to jump in with both feet." "Then jump," Ethan said. "I'll catch you." They talked late into the night about what they wanted. Marriage eventually both agreed. Kids maybe when the time was right. A life built together, balancing their careers and their relationship. It felt real and possible and wonderful. When summer turned to fall, Maya finally introduced Ethan to her parents. They flew to Sacramento for a long weekend, and Maya was nervous in a way she hadn't been even meeting a leaner. "They're going to love you," Maya assured Ethan as they landed. Her parents picked them up at the airport in her father's old Honda. Lai and Jennifer Chen were warm and welcoming, hugging Ethan like he was already family. At their restaurant, a small but popular spot in a strip mall, they fed Ethan until he claimed he couldn't eat another bite. "Maya tells us you work in construction," her father said. "Real estate development," Ethan clarified. "I build commercial and residential properties." "Good, honest work," her mother said approvingly. "Building things that last." Ethan caught Maya's eye, and she knew he was thinking about what he'd told her once, that his mother thought his work was beneath his potential, that he should have gone into finance or law. Her parents' simple approval clearly meant something to him. Her brother David joined them for dinner the next night, driving up from Berkeley. He and Ethan bonded over basketball, and Maya watched, heart full, as the two most important men in her life became friends. On their last night, her mother pulled Maya aside while they were doing dishes. "He's a good man," she said. "He loves you very much. I can see it in how he looks at you." "I love him too, Mama." "Then hold on to him. Good love is rare." Flying back to Boston, Ethan held Maya's hand the entire way. "Your family is amazing," he said. "I felt more at home in that restaurant than I ever did in the house I grew up in." "They loved you," Maya said, "almost as much as I do." As fall deepened into winter, they settled into their life together. Maya still kept her apartment, but she spent most nights at Ethan's place. They joked that they had 3 homes now. Hers, his, and the lake house, plus Rusty who split his time between the first 2. Ethan's business was doing well. He landed a major contract to build a mixed-use development that would include affordable housing units, something he'd been passionate about since meeting Marcus. Maya got promoted to senior therapist and started mentoring new graduates. They had their challenges. Ethan's work sometimes consumed him, and Maya had to remind him to take breaks, to be present. Maya's tendency to hold things in until she exploded led to a few fights that could have been avoided with earlier communication. But they worked through everything, committed to choosing each other every day. Christmas came, and they spent it at the lake house with Rusty, who was fascinated by the snow. On Christmas morning, over coffee and the cinnamon rolls Maya had learned were Ethan's favorite, he handed her a small box. "Before you panic," Ethan said, "this isn't what you think it is. Not yet anyway, but I want you to have it." Inside was a key on a simple chain. "It's to the lake house," Ethan explained. "I want this to officially be ours, not mine, ours. I'm putting your name on the deed." "Ethan," Maya started, overwhelmed. "I know what you're going to say, but this isn't about money. This is about building a life together, having a place that's just ours. Please, let me do this." Maya thought about how far they'd come from that first fight about gifts. She understood now that this was Ethan's way of showing love, of committing, of saying she mattered. "Okay," she said. "Our lake house." Ethan's smile was brilliant. He pulled her into his lap, kissing her deeply. "There's something else," he said when they broke apart. "I want you to move in with me. Really move in, not just keep clothes at my place. I want us to wake up together every morning. I want our home to be our home." "What about my apartment?" Maya asked practically. "Keep it, sublet it, whatever you want. But Maya, I want to live with you, officially. No more splitting time between places, just us." Maya pretended to think about it, but they both knew her answer. "Okay, yes, let's do it." They spent the rest of the holiday planning, excited and giddy like teenagers. By New Year's, Maya had moved most of her things into the penthouse. She kept her apartment for now, subleasing it to a colleague, but Ethan's place became theirs. They merged their furniture, their styles, their lives. Rusty approved of the arrangement, especially since the penthouse had more windows for him to survey his domain. "Look at us," Maya said one evening in February. They were cooking dinner together, Rusty weaving between their legs, music playing in the background. "We're so domestic." "I love domestic with you," Ethan said, stealing a kiss. Spring came again, marking over a year since they'd met in that alley. Ethan had a surprise planned, he'd told Maya, for their anniversary of meeting. She assumed it would be a nice dinner, maybe a weekend trip. Instead, on the exact day they'd met, Ethan led her to the alley behind their buildings. "What are we doing here?" Maya asked, confused. "This is where it started," Ethan said. "Where I saw you crouched down, being kind to a creature everyone else had ignored. Where I fell in love with you without even knowing it yet." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's breath caught. "Maya Chen," Ethan said, dropping to one knee right there in the alley. "You are the most incredible person I've ever known. You're kind and strong, and you make me want to be better every single day. I love how you talk to Rusty like he's a person. I love how passionate you are about your work. I love how you make me laugh, how you challenge me, how you see me for who I really am and love me anyway. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life loving you. Will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, simple and elegant, exactly what Maya would have chosen herself. But she barely looked at it, too focused on Ethan's face, on the love and hope shining in his eyes. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Maya noticed a familiar orange face watching them from a nearby window. "Rusty's watching," she said. "He approves," Ethan said. "I asked him first, obviously." They went back inside, calling family and friends to share the news. Alina cried happy tears on the phone. Maya's parents insisted on flying out the next weekend to celebrate. Rachel screamed so loud Maya had to hold the phone away from her ear. That night, curled up in bed with Rusty purring between them, Maya thought about the journey that had brought them here. A stray cat, an alley, two people feeding the same hungry creature. It seemed impossible that something so small could lead to something so huge, so life-changing. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, playing with her hair. "How lucky I am. How lucky we are. If I hadn't decided to feed Rusty that day, then I would have caught him eventually and found some other excuse to meet you," Ethan said confidently. "We were meant to find each other, Maya. I believe that." "I believe it too," she said softly. They started planning the wedding immediately. Maya wanted something intimate, and Ethan agreed. They chose the lake house as the venue, deciding on a late summer ceremony. Just close family and friends, nothing ostentatious despite Ethan's ability to fund something elaborate. "I just want to marry you," he kept saying. "Everything else is just details." But Maya found she cared about the details. She chose a simple dress that made her feel beautiful. They wrote their own vows. They planned a menu that included dishes from her parents' restaurant and favorites from their relationship. Every choice reflected who they were as a couple. The months leading up to the wedding flew by. Maya's brother agreed to walk her down the aisle since her father would be too emotional. Eleanor and Jennifer became unlikely friends, bonding over wedding planning. Marcus was Ethan's best man, and Rachel was Maya's maid of honor. There were the usual wedding stresses. The caterer almost double-booked. Maya's dress needed alterations. Ethan's father, who had been largely absent from his life, called wanting an invitation, leading to a difficult conversation where Ethan had to set boundaries. But through everything, Maya and Ethan remained focused on what mattered: their commitment to each other. On a perfect August evening, as the sun set over the lake, Maya walked down a simple aisle lined with wildflowers. Ethan stood at the end, looking devastating in his suit, his eyes locked on her like she was the only person in the world. They exchanged vows they'd written, promises of love and partnership and choosing each other every day. Maya cried through hers, and Ethan's voice broke on his. When the officiant pronounced them married, they kissed as the small gathering erupted in applause. The reception was exactly what they'd wanted. Good food, better company, lots of laughter. They had their first dance to the song that had been playing the night they'd said, "I love you," for the first time. Maya danced with her father and brother, Ethan with his mother and Maya's mother. Marcus gave a hilarious speech about how he'd never seen Ethan so happy. Rachel cried through her entire toast. As the evening wound down and guests started to leave, Maya and Ethan stood by the lake, watching the stars reflect on the water. "Hello, wife," Ethan said, pulling her close. "Hello, husband," Maya replied, loving how the words sounded. "Happy?" he asked. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," she said honestly. They spent their wedding night in the master bedroom of their lake house, the same room where they'd first made love. It felt full circle and perfect. Married life suited them. They honeymooned in Italy for 2 weeks, eating incredible food and exploring ancient cities and making love in beautiful hotels. Coming home felt good too, settling into their life with a new depth of commitment. Maya continued to excel at her job, eventually being offered a position as head of the physical therapy department. Ethan's company continued to grow, but he made sure to maintain balance, never letting work consume him the way it had before he met Maya. They talked about children, both wanting them but agreeing to wait a bit longer. They were enjoying this phase of life, just the two of them and Rusty. Rusty, now 3 years old and healthy, had grown into a confident, loving cat. He'd gone from a scared stray to a pampered house cat who ruled over their penthouse and lake house with equal authority. They joked that he was their practice child. 2 years into their marriage, Maya found out she was pregnant. She'd suspected for a week before taking the test, her body feeling different in ways she couldn't quite articulate. When the test came back positive, she stared at it for 10 minutes, emotions cycling through shock and joy and terror. She told Ethan that night over dinner. She'd planned something elaborate, but the moment he walked in the door, she couldn't wait. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out. Ethan froze, his briefcase still in his hand. "You're what?" "Pregnant. We're having a baby." He dropped the briefcase and crossed the room in 3 strides, sweeping her up in his arms. "Are you sure? When did you find out? How are you feeling?" "Oh my God, Maya, we're having a baby." They laughed and cried together, overwhelmed by the news. That night they lay in bed, Ethan's hand on her still flat stomach, talking about the future. "I'm scared," Maya admitted. "What if I'm not a good mother?" "You're going to be an amazing mother," Ethan said with certainty. "Look how you took care of Rusty, and you help people heal for a living. You're literally the most nurturing person I know. That's different than being responsible for a tiny human." "We'll figure it out together," Ethan promised. Like we figure out everything. The pregnancy was smooth. Maya had some morning sickness in the first trimester, but nothing severe. They told their families at 3 months, eliciting joyous reactions from everyone. Eleanor immediately started buying baby clothes. Maya's mother began knitting blankets. They found out at 20 weeks that they were having a girl. Ethan cried in the ultrasound room, holding Maya's hand so tight she lost circulation. "A daughter," he kept saying. "We're having a daughter." They turned one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery, painting it a soft yellow and filling it with books and toys. Maya insisted on a rocking chair, wanting to recreate the feeling of being rocked by her own mother. As her due date approached, Maya took maternity leave from work. Ethan rearranged his schedule to be as flexible as possible. They were ready, or as ready as any first-time parents could be. Lily Rose Shaw arrived 3 days before her due date, on a sunny March morning. Labor was long and hard, and there were moments when Maya thought she couldn't do it. But Ethan was there the entire time, holding her hand, encouraging her, loving her through every contraction. When they finally placed Lily in Maya's arms, tiny and pink and perfect, Maya understood what people meant about your heart walking around outside your body. "She's beautiful," Ethan whispered, his finger tracing their daughter's tiny hand, "just like her mother." "She has your nose," Maya said, already seeing Ethan in their daughter's features. Those first weeks were exhausting and wonderful and harder than anything Maya had ever done. Lily was a good baby, but she was still a baby, waking every few hours to eat, needing constant care. Maya and Ethan stumbled through it together, learning on the job, supporting each other through the exhaustion. Rusty was fascinated by the new addition, always supervising from a safe distance. They were careful to never leave him alone with Lily, but he seemed to understand she was part of the family now. "We have a whole family," Maya said one night, looking around the living room. Ethan was rocking Lily to sleep. Rusty was curled up on the couch, and she was there, tired but happy. "The family that started with a stray cat," Ethan said with a smile. "Best decision I ever made feeding him." "Second best," Ethan corrected. "Best decision was saying yes when I proposed." "Third best actually," Maya said. "Second best was falling in love with you." They settled into parenthood, finding their rhythm. Maya went back to work part-time after 3 months, and Ethan adjusted his schedule to be home more. They hired a nanny for the hours when they both had to work, a lovely woman named Patricia who treated Lily like her own grandchild. On Lily's first birthday, they threw a small party at the lake house. Family and close friends came to celebrate. Lily, just starting to walk, toddled around in her party dress, delighting everyone. Rusty watched from the safety of a high shelf, probably wondering what all the fuss was about. That night, after everyone had left and Lily was asleep, Maya and Ethan sat on the dock like they had so many times before. "Can you believe how much our life has changed?" Maya asked. "Best changes I could have imagined," Ethan said. "Remember when we met, when you came up to me in the alley? I remember thinking you were beautiful. I remember being grateful that Kat had brought you into my life." "We should do something special for Rusty," Maya said. "He really did bring us together." They laughed about it, but the next day they ordered Rusty a fancy new cat tree and his favorite treats. He accepted the offerings as his due, ever the dignified feline. Time continued to pass. Lily grew from a baby to a toddler to a little girl who loved books and swimming in the lake, and her orange cat friend. Ethan's company continued to thrive, but he never lost sight of what mattered most. Maya became the head of her department, mentoring the next generation of physical therapists. They added to their family 3 years after Lily was born, a son they named Andrew. Rusty, now getting older, accepted this second child with the same patient dignity he'd shown with Lily. Life wasn't always perfect. They still fought sometimes, still struggled with balancing work and family and their relationship. But they always came back to each other, always chose love, always remembered that they were a team. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they returned to the alley where they'd met. Lily was 9, Andrew was 6, and Rusty was now a distinguished 13 years old who mostly spent his days sleeping in sunny spots. "Why are we in an alley?" Lily asked, wrinkling her nose. "Because this is where your father and I met," Meyer explained. "We were both feeding a stray cat." "Rusty?" Andrew asked. "Rusty," Ethan confirmed. "He was skinny and dirty and living in this alley. Your mom rescued him." "We rescued him together," Maya corrected. They told their kids the story about the vet visit and the split costs and how they'd fallen in love over a formerly stray cat. Lily and Andrew listened with wide eyes, probably finding it strange that their parents' love story started in such an unromantic place. But to Maya, it was perfectly romantic, because it was real and messy and based on something genuine. Two people caring about a creature that needed help. That core of kindness, of looking out for each other and the vulnerable around them, had been the foundation of everything they'd built. That night, after the kids were asleep and Rusty was curled up on his favorite chair, Meyer and Ethan sat on their balcony overlooking the city. "Thank you," Maya said. "For what?" "For seeing me in that alley, for caring about a stray cat, for falling in love with me, for building this life with me, for everything." "Thank you for taking a chance on a guy from an alley," Ethan said, "for loving me for who I am, not what I have. For giving me this family, this life. You're everything I never knew I needed, Maya." They kissed, sweet and familiar. 10 years of love and commitment in that simple gesture. Inside, Rusty stirred from his sleep, stretching lazily. He jumped down from his chair and padded over to his food bowl, pausing to look at the photos covering the walls. Pictures of two people falling in love, getting married, having children. Pictures of a family that existed because one skinny orange cat had needed help, and two kind people had answered that need. If Rusty understood his role in all of it, he gave no sign. He simply ate his food, groomed his paws, and returned to his sunny spot, content in the knowledge that he was loved and safe and home. And that really was what it was all about. Love, safety, home. Built between two people who'd met in an alley, bonded over a cat, and created something beautiful together. It was a simple story, but simple stories were often the best ones. No grand gestures needed, just two hearts recognizing each other and choosing to stay. Years continued to pass, bringing new challenges and joys. Rusty eventually passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 16, leaving a hole in their hearts but also countless happy memories. They buried him at the lake house under a tree with a small stone marker that read, "Rusty, the cat who brought us together." Lily went off to college, studying medicine. Andrew followed a few years later, pursuing engineering like his uncle. The penthouse felt emptier but also like it had come full circle, just Maya and Ethan again. But they weren't the same people who'd met in that alley. They'd grown together, built a life, raised children, weathered storms. They were partners in the truest sense, their love deeper and richer for having been tested and proven over time. On their 20th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows at the lake house with their now-grown children and aging parents in attendance. Maya wore a simple white dress, Ethan a suit. They repeated the promises they'd made 2 decades earlier, meaning them even more now. "I would do it all again," Ethan said during his vows. "Every moment, every challenge, every joy. I'd choose you every single time." "You're my best decision," Maya said through happy tears. Then now, Always. They danced under the stars like they had on their wedding night, held each other close, and marveled at the life they'd created from such a small moment of kindness in an alley, because that's what love was, really. A million small moments of choosing each other, of showing up, of being kind. It was feeding a stray cat and splitting vet bills and late-night conversations and held hands and whispered promises and so much more. It was everything. And it had all started with a skinny orange cat and two people who'd cared enough to help. The end.